Mirror Talk, The Language of the Nervous System, Episode 1, The First Word. How Early Language Shapes Safety. Welcome to Mirror Talk, The Language of the Nervous System. This series is part of an evolving hypothesis, a living framework I've been developing through years of creative inquiry across several interconnected projects. Each one is a facet of the same pursuit, to understand how perception, story, and state shape the human experience, and how awareness can transform them. At the heart of it all lies a simple idea. Language is not only a tool for communication, but a reflection of our nervous system state. Words, tone, and silence are physiological events before they are philosophical ones. They record, replay, and reshape our experience of safety. What follows is not a doctrine, but a map in progress, a journey through mirrors rather than milestones. Mirror Talk invites you to explore how words live in the body, how tone encodes trust or tension, and how revoicing our inner world can repattern our outer one. The broader constellation. To understand where Mirror Talk comes from, it helps to see the constellation around it, a body of work orbiting the same question. What does it mean to wake up inside the language that built you? Each project approaches that question from a different doorway. The Inversiverse, waking up in a world built to keep you asleep. The Inversiverse is the philosophical spine of my work, a long-form documentary podcast and written series that examines perception, indoctrination, and the architectures of belief. It explores how reality is narrated through culture, media, education, and ideology. Each episode peels back a layer of illusion, marketing myths, moral binaries, societal scripts, and invites critical thinking as an act of spiritual hygiene. Where Mirror Talk listens for micro-expressions in language, the Inversiverse studies the macro, the stories entire civilizations tell themselves. Together they form a feedback loop. One teaches us to see the script, the other to speak beyond it. The unfiltered human on the fringe. If the Inversiverse maps collective conditioning, the unfiltered human on the fringe steps into the raw terrain of individual emotion. This series explores shadow feelings, envy, lust, anger, shame, apathy, and control through personal narrative and psychological insight. It asks what happens when we give taboo emotions a microphone instead of a muzzle. Each episode is a confessional mirror, part memoir, part meditation, part myth-busting. The aim isn't catharsis for its own sake, but integration, to show that wholeness demands inclusion, not erasure. Where Mirror Talk decodes the phrasing of safety, unfiltered human decodes the honesty of feeling. Both honor embodiment. Both use story as ceremonies. The Body Knows is the somatic sibling of these projects, a research-driven exploration of how the body stores narrative. It blends neuroscience, trauma studies, and lived experience to illustrate how posture, breath, and gesture speak the unsaid. If Mirror Talk is about translating physiology into phrases, The Body Knows is about hearing the body before translation begins. Episodes include guided awareness practices, interviews with practitioners, and case studies in interoception, the felt sense of internal life. Together, Mirror Talk and The Body Knows create a bridge between semantics and sensation. One gives words to the whispers, the other teaches you to listen. The Linguiverse is the laboratory where these hypotheses are tested in real time, a podcast essay hybrid examining how symbols sculpt perception. It weaves cognitive science, philosophy, and poetics to reveal the hidden grammars of culture. How memes move minds, how metaphors steer policies, how syntax frames morality. If Mirror Talk speaks to the nervous system, the Linguiverse speaks to the semiotic field. It's where I first articulated the notion of mirror linguistics, that every utterance is both message and mirror, carrying within it the emotional signature of its source. The Linguiverse presents the shadow spectrum. From that main series grew the shadow spectrum, a mini-arc devoted to the psychology of polarity, light and dark, conscious and unconscious, saint and shadow. Across its episodes, we trace how language partitions morality, how words like good and evil, pure and impure, act less as truths and more as tools of social choreography. This exploration directly informed Mirror Talk. Understanding shadow linguistics clarifies why certain phrases contract the body while others expand it. Every moral absolute carries a muscular echo, intersections. How the threads weave together each project illuminates a different axis. The axis of perception, primary question. What stories shape our worldview? Expression through the Inversiverse. The axis of emotion, primary question. What feelings hide beneath behavior? Expression through the unfiltered human on the fringe. The axis of embodiment, primary question. How does the body record truth? Expression through the Body Knows. The axis of language, primary question. How do words encode reality? Expression through the Linguiverse. The axis of polarity, primary question. How do we integrate opposites? Expression through the shadow spectrum. The axis of integration, primary question. How can speech restore safety? Expression through Mirror Talk. Seen together, they form a spiral. Awareness to expression, from expression to embodiment and to integration. Mirror Talk is the synthesis point, where philosophy becomes physiology, where insight becomes utterance. the Mirror-Linguistic Hypothesis, MLH. The MLH proposes that language is a bidirectional mirror. Outwardly, it reflects internal state. Our words reveal how safe we feel. Inwardly, it shapes the state. Our words can generate or dissolve safety. Every sentence is thus both diagnostic and prescriptive. By observing our spontaneous phrasing, the metaphors, modals, and tones we default to, we glimpse the nervous system's current map. By consciously reframing those phrases, we redraw the map itself. This dialogue between word and body is continuous. When we speak kindly, vagal tone softens. When we hear hostility, muscles brace. Mirror talk trains awareness of this feedback loop so that language becomes a tool for co-regulation rather than coercion. The nervous system language, NSL, complementing MLH, is NSL, a practical grammar of safety. It isn't a prescribed vocabulary, but a process. 1. Notice the state: fight, flight, freeze, fawn, flow. 2. Name it gently, labeling low as threat. 3. Nurture it through phrasing that invites expansion. NSL is emergent, personal, and cultural. Your lexicon may differ from mine. What matters is resonance, not uniformity. Across this season, you'll experiment with phrasing that helps your body exhale. How to engage with this work: each Mirror Talk episode offers observation, a scenario we all know; translation, decoding the state beneath the sentence; reauthoring, crafting phrases that regulate rather than react; integration, embodying the shift through breath and reflection. You'll hear invitations to pause, journal, or simply notice. These are gentle experiments, not obligations. Over time, you'll assemble your own living lexicon, a personalized vocabulary of safety. For visual learners, the accompanying Lingua-Verse podcast expands on today's theory. Link to be provided within the description of this episode. For readers, the Substack concept paper offers references, diagrams, and extended notes. Link to be provided within the description. All podcasts mentioned, the Inversiverse, Unfiltered Human, On the Fringe, The Body Knows, the Linguaverse, The Shadow Spectrum, and now Mirror Talk, are available through my main channel, This Place Called Earth. Subscribe wherever you listen, and you'll find the full ecosystem in one feed. A note on approach: this is not self-help in the conventional sense. There are no affirmations to memorize, no scripts to imitate. Instead, consider these sessions field notes for the soul, observations from someone walking beside you, not ahead of you. Together, we'll study the choreography of communication. How a sigh can signal surrender, how a question can cloak a plea, how silence can both wound and heal. You'll hear science beside story, poetry beside psychology. The aim is integration, not authority. Use what resonates, release what doesn't. Let your own body be the final editor. Returning to the beginning, before grammar came rhythm. Before vocabulary came voice. Before speech, there was a state. Each of us learned the language of safety through tone, gaze, and timing long before we could conjugate verbs. Those early exchanges scripted our comfort with expression. Some of us learned that sound invites connection, others that it summons correction. Today, we begin decoding that first lexicon, not to relive the past, but to liberate the present. So take a slow breath. Feel the rise in your chest, the weight of air as meaning. You don't need to agree or analyze. Simply notice. Your body is fluent already. This is Mirror Talk, a conversation between your words and your nervous system. Let's begin. The grammar before words. Before we learned the alphabet, we learned approval. Before we understood syntax, we understood silence. And before we could write a single word, we could read a room. Every child becomes a linguist long before they can spell, fluent not in letters, but in tone. The body, attuned to safety, decodes its environment through vibration. A raised eyebrow, a tightening jaw, the pause between one word and the next. These cues form the first grammar of life, a nervous system lexicon written in breath, glance, and gesture. It begins quietly. A child hums to themselves while drawing, lost in creation. A parent, weary from the day, says sharply, "Not so loud." The sound stops. The child blinks, absorbs the tension, and without knowing it, files away a rule: joy can be too much. In another home, another moment, a curious question is met with irritation. Why is the sky blue? Because it just is. Stop asking silly things. A new rule: curiosity annoys, keep it contained. These aren't acts of cruelty. They are fragments of humanity, echoes of exhaustion, inherited scripts passed down unconsciously. But to the body of a child, they are laws of physics. Every repetition reinforces the formula. Voice equals risk, silence equals safety. Mirror moment, a chance for correction. By the time we reach school, most of us carry a subtle library of these equations. We have learned when to speak, when to shrink, and when to mimic. Our words are not chosen, they are calculated. We measure tone before meaning, safety before truth. And because this learning happens before conscious memory, it becomes the water we swim in, invisible, assumed, unexamined. That is the heart of the mirror moment. The invitation to turn around and see the reflection we've been speaking from. The universal scene: imagine yourself in a familiar setting. You're small, your legs dangling from a plastic chair, the room filled with the murmur of other voices. The teacher asks a question. Your hand lifts before your mind catches up, propelled by instinct. A flicker of excitement, the spark of wanting to be seen. The words spill out, eager, imperfect. You reach for meaning the way a child reaches for a star, wide open, imprecise, alive. Then comes correction. Not like that. No, that's wrong. Wait your turn. A ripple moves through the class. Maybe laughter. Maybe the teacher sighs. It's over in seconds. A tiny, forgettable moment. Yet something shifts beneath the ribs. Excitement turns to heat, then to stone. The chest tightens. You glance down. Next time, you'll check your tone, your timing, and your rightness. Next time, you'll wait. And so the body learns to edit itself before expression, to translate emotion into acceptability, to preempt rejection with restraint. This is how tone trauma is born, not always from shouting or insult, but from the steady drizzle of micro-corrections that teach the child one painful truth. Your voice must be managed. For some, that management becomes politeness, smiling through dismissal, cushioning truth in soft edges. For others, it becomes perfectionism, speaking only when certain, chasing approval through precision. And for many, it becomes silence, a learned economy of sound. Every adaptive strategy is intelligent. Each is a survival dialect, a way of belonging when authenticity felt unsafe. The dialects of survival. As adults, these dialects disguise themselves as personality. We call them being easygoing, being professional, being private. But under examination, they reveal their roots. Systems of regulation, not expression. Listen closely to your own speech. How often do you start sentences with sorry, just, or I don't know? But each is a linguistic crouch, a way of softening presence before it's even felt. And tones, that subtle rise at the end of statements, turning certainty into question, the uptalk, so often critiqued, especially in women. It's not a trend, it's a trauma echo. It says, please don't punish me for existing too loudly. When we decode these patterns through the lens of the nervous system, they make perfect sense. A voice raised in childhood through joy, anger, or curiosity that met tension learns to tread lightly. The body remembers that contraction. The diaphragm hesitates, the breath shortens, the larynx tightens. Speech becomes a negotiation, not an emergence. Language as feedback loop. The mirror-linguistic hypothesis suggests that these learned responses don't just reflect our state, they create it. When we speak tentatively, our body hears the uncertainty. When we whisper apologies, our cells absorb the shame. Language becomes a feedback loop. The nervous system shapes the words, and the words reinforce the nervous system's map. To change the map, we must first witness it. So pause for a moment. Recall the last time you wanted to say something, but didn't. Perhaps in a meeting, a relationship, an argument, or a moment of intimacy. Trace the hesitation. Where did it live? Throat, chest, gut? What thought followed it? They won't listen. It's not worth it. I'll say it wrong. Each phrase is an echo, the grown-up syntax of an early silence. We don't outgrow these scripts. We outperform them, masking vulnerability with intellect, humor, or control. But the body still whispers the old refrain. Be careful. Be quiet. Be correct. This is why awareness must precede affirmation. You cannot speak your truth from a body that still fears repercussion. First, you must befriend the silence that protected you. The origins of silence. Every silence has an origin story. Some were born in classrooms, others at dinner tables, others still in the emotional weather of a parent's face. A raised voice in one generation births a soft voice in the next. A household of interruptions creates a listener who never interrupts. A childhood of unpredictability grows an adult who rehearses every conversation in advance. When you trace these lines back, you discover something humbling. You didn't choose your communication style, it chose you, and it chose survival first. That realization is not an accusation, it's an act of compassion. Because once you see that your patterns are protections, you can stop shaming them, you can thank them, and then, gently, you can begin to loosen them. The reflective inheritance. Let's return to the mirror. Picture that small version of you again, the one who learned the cost of sound. What were they trying to share when the correction arrived? Joy, curiosity, emotion, imagination. Every correction hides a contraction, not only in the child, but in the adult who delivered it. The teacher's sigh, the parent's snap. They too were speaking from state, from fatigue, from the echoes of their own early corrections. The mirror reflects both ways. When we study our language through this lens, we start to see family trees of tone, generations of voices teaching and retracting safety through words. Perhaps your grandmother said little because her opinions were mocked. Your mother spoke quickly to be heard before the interruption. You learned to phrase requests as apologies, just to keep the peace. What looks like personality is often ancestry. The sound of correction reverberates across time, not to condemn, but to be recognized. Awareness is the first act of rewriting. The guarded voice in therapy rooms, one often hears the phrase, "I don't have a voice," but that's never quite true. The voice is there, it's simply guarded, hidden behind layers of anticipation. When invited gently, it emerges, trembling at first, then steadier. The words are simple, I felt, I need, I want. Yet for many, they feel like trespass. Why? Because somewhere long ago, A sentence like that met stillness or scorn. A child said, "I don't like this," and heard, "Don't be ungrateful." Another said, "I'm scared," and was told, "There's nothing to be afraid of." Each dismissal closed a door. Now, as adults, we knock politely on the walls of our own throats. Reclaiming the right to speak, reclaiming voice is not volume, it's permission. It begins with the smallest acts, answering honestly when asked how you are, pausing before softening a truth, letting silence hold a statement rather than shrinking it with laughter. These are micro-revolutions, tiny rebellions against the reflex of self-erasure. You might stumble, your voice might crack. You may feel foolish or exposed. That's okay. The body is unlearning a law older than memory. Every tremor is proof of translation, the movement from suppression to expression. Cultural scripts of correction. Let's zoom out again, beyond the personal to the collective. Our institutions mirror these same dynamics. Schools reward compliance over curiosity. Workplaces praise diplomacy over directness. Societies condition politeness as a virtue, even when its silence is truth. Language becomes a social contract. We trade authenticity for acceptance. But contracts can be renegotiated. The task of adulthood and of awakening is to review the terms. To ask, what am I still apologizing for? Whose comfort am I protecting with my quiet? Every time we update those clauses, we shift the culture a fraction. One regulated voice invites another. Co-regulation scales. That's how revolutions begin, not in slogans but in sentences, listening for the echo. So how do we recognize the sound of correction still living in us? Listen for friction. Notice when you edit mid-thought, when your throat tightens before a truth, when a compliment feels unsafe, when you rehearse kindness to avoid conflict. These are residues of old lessons. They don't need punishment, only presence. Try whispering to yourself. That was then. This is now. My voice can stay. Feel how the chest loosens, how breath deepens. Small phrases, softly spoken, recalibrate entire systems. This is the essence of mirror talk. Each word is a reflection. Each reflection is a release. Microtones of change. We often think healing requires grand gestures, breakthroughs, declarations, and vows, but language teaches otherwise. Change lives in microtones. The body listens to subtleties, a gentler inflection, a slower pace, a kinder word. You don't need to shout to be sovereign. You only need to speak from a regulated state, because regulation is resonance. A calm voice doesn't demand attention, it invites it. A congruent sentence feels like truth, even before it's understood. That's the paradox of the nervous system. Safety sounds a certain way, the whisper of belonging. So as we close this first mirror, pause again. Bring one hand to your throat, one to your heart. Inhale gently, exhale slowly. Whisper if you wish. My voice belongs here. Notice the vibrations travel through bone, tissue, and time, a signal to every earlier version of you that silence is no longer required. Because the first word was never about language. It was about belonging. And now, with awareness, you begin to speak it again. The first stage, the scene, a universal classroom. Every child steps into a classroom carrying a private lexicon, a nervous system already fluent in the grammar of home. Some arrive with voices buoyant and bold, others tread softly, listening first for tone before daring a word. The classroom is the first public theatre of language, the place where inner worlds meet outer rules. Here expression becomes performance. Curiosity is timed, emotion is graded, and silence earns both praise and suspicion. No matter where in the world you went to school, the choreography feels familiar. Desks aligned in rows, eyes trained on authority, answers weighed more heavily than questions. The room itself teaches before any lesson begins. The fluorescent lights, the ticking clock, the collective inhale when a teacher calls a name, these are not neutral details. They are cues shaping our physiology long before knowledge takes root. In this space, the nervous system learns the politics of participation. Speak too soon and you risk error. Speak too late and you risk invisibility. Speak differently and you risk rejection. And so we learn to calculate expressions, not simply what to say, but how to say it to survive the social equation. The curriculum of conformity. The classroom teaches many things, not all of them spoken. Mathematics teaches sequence, but also obedience to logic. Language arts teach communication, but also conformity of thought. Science teaches inquiry, yet punishes deviation from consensus. The hidden curriculum whispers, there is one right answer, and it isn't yours. We learn to prioritize accuracy over authenticity. We polish spontaneity into strategy. We translate intuition into intellect, emotion into evidence. By adolescence, the lesson is internalized. It's safer to be right than real. This is not cynicism, it's anthropology. Education, as designed, reflects industrial origins, a system built to produce predictability, not presence. The bell becomes the metronome of our attention, conditioning our sense of time. The red pen becomes the editor of our imagination, teaching us that error is exposure. Each mark, each correction, each withheld praise becomes a subtle stroke on the canvas of identity. And while the intellect may flourish, something quieter, the instinct to express freely, begins to dim. Authority and attunement. Every classroom has an emotional climate, often dictated by the teacher's nervous system. A calm, regulated presence creates a field of curiosity. A tense, authoritarian presence triggers vigilance. Children, exquisitely attuned, learn to map this unseen weather. They scan tone before instruction, body language before words. They learn that safety is not in the rule, but in the rhythm. This is why two identical phrases can land so differently. "Be quiet," said warmly, inviting focus. "Be quiet," barks sharply, summoning freeze. The words are the same, the frequency is not. And yet, within the traditional classroom, tone is often ignored, treated as decoration rather than direction. We correct vocabulary while overlooking vibration. We teach grammar before grace. What if attunement were the first subject? What if children learned not only what to say, but how sound shapes safety? The nervous system craves congruence, alignment between intention and inflection. When tone contradicts content, "I'm not angry," said angrily, confusion arises. Over time, this incongruence erodes trust, not only in others but in one's own perception. Children begin to doubt their instincts. If they say they're calm, but I feel scared, maybe my feelings are wrong. This is the seed of self-abandonment, the splitting of sensation from sense. It begins not in trauma, but in everyday mismatches. The classroom, meant to teach comprehension, often breeds disassociation from truth. The birth of the public self in the quiet arithmetic of childhood, approval equals belonging. And belonging, for the developing nervous system, is oxygen. So when we sense that approval follows performance, we adapt. We sculpt a public self, articulate, agreeable, attentive, a version optimized for reward. We learn the tempo of politeness, the melody of modesty. We hold back impulses deemed disruptive. We translate passion into politeness, dissent into diplomacy. This is not hypocrisy, it's harmony with survival. The child's body understands. To stay safe, I must stay liked. By secondary school, the public self becomes fluent, answering before feeling, smiling before knowing. It's praised for maturity, composure, and confidence. But behind its eloquence hums a constant vigilance, a radar scanning for tone, gaze, expectation. Many adults never step off this stage. They continue performing safety, even in private, mistaking hyperattunement for empathy and suppression for self-control. But the body keeps count. Each swallowed word lodges in the diaphragm. Each feigned agreement leaves a residue in the chest. Each unspoken truth tightens the jaw, stiffens the shoulders. Eventually, the performance costs more energy than it earns. Micro-moments of meaning to the untrained eye. A classroom looks calm when silent. But silence has dialects. There's the silence of awe, the inhale before insight. The silence of shame, the collapse after error. The silence of strategy, the pause before participation. Every quiet child carries a different story. Some are listening deeply. Some are shrinking quietly. Some are waiting for safety that never arrives. Educators rarely ask which. They see stillness and assume compliance, not contraction. But the body knows. The feet fidget under desks, breath flutters shallow, eyes dart sideways. Each gesture is a telegram from the nervous system saying, "I'm here, but I'm not safe." What would it mean to teach from a place of physiological literacy, to recognize regulation as readiness? Imagine a teacher pausing mid-lesson, noticing the collective slump and saying, "Let's take a breath together before we continue." No pedagogy needed, just presence. The nervous system recenters. Attention returns. Safety is the soil of curiosity. Without it, learning becomes memorization, information without integration. The echo into adulthood decades later. The classroom lingers. You feel it when your boss asks a question and your body tenses. You feel it when a meeting turns into a quiz and your mind scans for the right answer. You feel it when disagreement feels dangerous, even in loving conversation. These are not flaws in confidence. They are echoes of conditioning. The adult still carries the student, the one who feared the red pen, the one who learned to raise their hand for permission to speak, the one who associated curiosity with correction. Our workplaces, governments, and relationships often replicate classroom hierarchies. Few speak, many listen. Mistakes invite exposure. Compliance masquerades as competence. It's not that we never left school. It's that school that never left us. The nervous system, patterned early, repeats what it knows until shown another rhythm. The alternative classroom. What might a different classroom feel like, one attuned to mirror talk? Imagine entering a space where your state is noticed before your performance, where the teacher greets you by name and by nervous system, scanning not for posture, but for presence, where questions are invitations, not tests, where correction comes through curiosity. Tell me more about how you saw that, rather than rebuke, where silence is explored, not filled. In such a space, language becomes play again. Mistakes are data, not danger. Tone is taught alongside tense. Children here learn the mirror skill, how to listen not just with their ears, but with empathy, how to hear the heartbeat beneath the word. Imagine the generational impact of such literacy. Adults who recognize tone as truth, leaders who modulate their state before speech, lovers who pause to breathe before replying. This is not fantasy, it's neurobiology in practice. When regulation leads, learning follows. A nervous system at ease retains more, relates better, and responds with nuance. Safety is not softness, it's scaffolding, learning the language of safety. If traditional schooling taught us to chase correctness, Mirror Talk invites us to chase congruence. Not, did I say it right? But, did I say it real? The classroom of awareness has no grades, only growth. Every stumble is syntax learning itself. As adults, we can return to this metaphorical school to re-educate the body. We become both student and teacher, rewriting the lessons once carved in cortisol. In this new classroom, the curriculum begins with noticing. How do I respond when I'm corrected? What happens to me when I correct others? Does my tone teach safety or fear? Each question is a doorway. Each answer is a lesson plan. The aim isn't perfection, but presence. To speak with awareness of the echo. To correct with compassion, not control. To replace compliance with curiosity. Integration. Rewriting the lesson, take a slow breath. Recall a classroom memory, a time you felt small, exposed, or unseen. See the room clearly, the walls, the light, the faces. Notice what your body does as you revisit it. Now imagine stepping back into that scene, not as the child, but as your present self. You walk to your younger version, kneel beside them, and whisper, "It's okay to wonder. It's okay to not know. It's okay to be wrong." Watch their shoulders drop. Notice the breath return. Feel the echo shift. In this micro act of imagination, the nervous system rewrites a rule. Correction no longer means contraction, it means care. This is the essence of re-education, not memorizing new facts, but metabolizing new feelings. We do not dismantle the classroom, we repurpose it. The same space that once scripted silence can now host expression. We began this journey at the moment of correction, the first time sound met scrutiny. Now we stand in the architecture that amplified it, the classroom. It is both setting and symbol, the cradle of collective conditioning, the stage where state meets system. But awareness turns walls into windows. The lesson is no longer be right, but be real. No longer wait your turn, but find your rhythm. You carry both the student and the teacher within. Let them meet. Let them learn, because every nervous system, once taught that silence equals safety, can be re-schooled in another truth. Safety is not in suppression, but in self-connection. And from that truth, a new language, your language, begins to form. State reflection. Voice as a nervous system. The body speaks first. Before thought, there was tone. Before language, there was rhythm. Before articulation, there was breath. Every voice is a map of its body, an audible record of how safety and stress have shaped its terrain. You can hear history in a single sentence. The cadence of caution, the pause of uncertainty, the laugh stitched over unease. Speech is not merely sound, it's the physiology of presence rendered in vibration. Each syllable carries the residue of regulation, the state we inhabit in the moment we speak. And yet, most of us have never been taught to listen beneath the words, to hear the nervous system in the voice. This is where Mirror Talk invites you inward, to ask not only what am I saying, but who is speaking through me. Because your voice is not one voice, it's a chorus of states. At times bold, at times brittle, at times barely audible. Each state holds its own lexicon, syntax, and rhythm. Our state is our grammar. And regulation, that subtle art of returning to safety, is our fluency. A mirror for the mouth, take a slow, deliberate breath. Feel the air rise beneath your sternum. Notice where it meets resistance, throat, chest, jaw. Now recall a recent conversation. Not the content, but the sound of your voice. It's sharp, quick, hesitant, overbright. These tonal fingerprints reveal more than any transcript. They tell the story of the body's state at the moment of speech. Each time we open our mouths, the autonomic nervous system becomes a co-author. If we're grounded, voice resonates, full, melodic, paced. If we're tense, tone thins, brittle, high, clipped. If we're braced, sound hesitates, words hover before release. The nervous system is the unseen scriptwriter. The body keeps the score, and the score keeps time in our sentences. The 4 dialects of defense. In trauma studies, the fight, flight, freeze, fawn framework describes instinctive survival responses. But beyond behavior, these states write themselves into speech, has its own linguistic fingerprint grammar of protection. Let's listen to them one by one. The fighter, voice as defense. When the system mobilizes into a fight, the voice sharpens. Volume rises, cadence quickens, edges harden. The aim is to establish control, to secure dominance through sound. The fighter's grammar is declarative. Sentences end with certainty, and questions turn rhetorical. Interruptions abound. Silence feels like surrender. Beneath the assertiveness lies urgency, the body's plea to be heard, be right, be safe. Each argument is armor. Each correction is a shield. Even in calm moments, the residue lingers. Statements may carry an undertone of vigilance, a readiness to defend. The fighter's lexicon favors precision, logic, and proof, a cognitive sword to ward off chaos. Physiologically, sympathetic activation tightens the chest, accelerates breathing, and narrows the vocal tone. Jaw clenched, eyes alert, hands animate. The voice becomes a vector of energy, driving forward, rarely yielding. But fight is not fury, it's fear repackaged. Behind every raised voice may live a child who once felt unseen, who learned that only volume or victory ensured visibility. To soften the fighter's tongue, safety must precede surrender. Breath must widen before words can. The flyer, voices escape in flight, language becomes velocity. Sentences sprint. Pauses vanish. Ideas leap ahead of embodiment. The flyer intellectualizes and analyses as an avoidance. Their speech is fluent yet fleeting, dancing just beyond depth. Jokes deflect vulnerability. Tangents trail off before intimacy lands. Questions multiply, keeping attention safely elsewhere. Physiologically, the breath hovers high in the chest. Shoulders lift, eyes dart. The voice may sound bright and animated, yet underneath, the diaphragm never descends. This is the syntax of survival through speed. If I keep talking, I can't be touched. If I stay clever, I can stay safe. Flight voices often shine in academia, debate, storytelling, places where intellect earns admiration. But beneath eloquence, fatigue builds. It's exhausting to outrun stillness. Healing asks the flyer to land. To let silence finish a sentence. To discover that truth can walk, not race. The freezer. Voice as absence. When threat overwhelms and escape feels impossible, the system freezes. Movement halts. Sound follows. Words vanish mid-thought. Sentences stumble, dissolve into ellipses. The body goes offline, eyes glaze, breath disappears, voice drops to a whisper or silence. In freeze, language becomes fog, thought sluggish, tongue heavy. Response delay, not from choice, but from dorsal vagal shutdown. Van der Kolk wrote, "The body keeps the score." In freeze, the score is muted, but the tension hums beneath. A locked jaw, a swallowed breath, a throat that aches with unspoken noise. To others, the freezer may appear disengaged, indifferent, or cold. Inside, they're trapped in static, a buffering signal between impulse and articulation. This is not laziness, it's latency, the nervous system's pause button. To thaw requires safety in slowness. Whispers may return before sentences. Sound before structure. Patience becomes translation. The fauna, voice as peace treaty. When connection feels conditional, the system turns to fawn, appeasement as attachment. Voice softens, tone lifts, vocabulary adapts. Each word is tuned to please, each laugh a lullaby to disarm tension. Faunas speak fluent empathy, often over-attuned to others' comfort. They mirror language, modulate volume, echo emotion. Their grammar is deferential, hedges, caveats, apologies. Physiologically, the body leans in, breath shallow, smile fixed. The vagus nerve vibrates in service of belonging. Yes becomes a shield, no a foreign tongue. What looks like kindness is often choreography, a dance to maintain peace at any cost. But appeasement is not authenticity. Each swallowed truth lodges in the throat. Each false agreement teaches the body. My safety depends on self-erasure. To heal, the fauna must reclaim contrast, rediscover that disagreement need not mean disconnection. That love can coexist with limits. That safety can hold the sound of no. Embodied syntax, when the body speaks before we do speech, does not begin in the mouth. It begins in muscle, breath, and memory. The diaphragm decides whether the voice can rise. The jaw dictates the sharpness of sound. The posture determines projection, upright or withdrawn. Each articulation is a movement pattern, a choreography rehearsed by years of conditioning. Notice how emotion rearranges anatomy. Anger stiffens the neck, shame rounds the shoulders, tightens the throat. Grief caves the chest. Our words inherit these shapes. A constricted diaphragm births clipped phrasing. A trembling jaw scatters consonants. A collapsed chest yields a whisper. This is embodied syntax, grammar as gesture, meaning as movement. Van der Kolk reminds us, the body keeps the score. In the symphony of speech, tension is notation. Each tremor, each hesitation, each octave shift marks where safety faltered. Language, then, is both archive and avenue, a record of regulation and a route to restore it. To listen somatically is to become a linguist of breath, translating tone back into tenderness. Hearing your state, let's pause. Close your eyes if you wish. Breathe. Now gently ask yourself, which state does my voice live in? Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? Don't rush for certainty. You may hear more than one. Our voices, like constellations, shift with context. Perhaps at work, you perform precision, flight. At home, you tread softly, fawn. Under stress, you sharpen, fight. In shame, you vanish, freeze. No answer is an indictment. Each is information. Each shows where your system learned to seek safety. This is state reflection, awareness without accusation. You're not analyzing, you're attuning. Listening, not judging. Your voice is a seismograph. Let it trace, not testify. The score of speech, if the body keeps the score, voice is its melody. It plays the theme of every state, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in dissonance. When fight hums, melody is major, bold, assertive. When the flight takes the lead, tempo accelerates. When freeze dominates, rhythm slows, notes fade. When fawn conducts, dynamics soften, pianissimo, always considerate. The composition is continuous, yet changeable. Safety rewrites rhythm. Regulation retunes the key. Through awareness, we become our own composers, adjusting tempo, phrasing, tone. Each breath is a new bar. Each pause is a rest note for repair. Regulation as fluency. Language without regulation is translation without comprehension. Words may flow, but meaning fragments. To be fluent in mirror talk is not to speak eloquently, but congruently, sound matching state, tone matching truth. Regulation is not silence of emotion, it's synchrony of systems. Heart, lungs, and larynx aligned, message and music unified. When we regulate, our voice lowers, widens, warms, prosody returns, melody and motion. Listeners feel it before they understand it. This is the language of safety, steady breath, supple jaw, eyes engaged, words paced. The body ceases to edit, speech becomes self, not performance, but presence. Our state is our grammar, regulation is fluency. Safety is syntax in motion, integration practice. Listening as language learning, try this gentle reflection. Find a quiet space, record yourself speaking, perhaps reading a paragraph aloud, or simply sharing a thought. Then play it back not as a critic, but as a scientist. Ask, where does my breath sit, chest, throat, belly? Is my tone steady or hurried? Do I rush endings, soften statements, or overfill silences? Which state might this sound belong to? No correction required, only curiosity. You're learning your voice's nervous system. Next, re-record slower, softer, with a deeper inhale. Notice what shifts. Hear how safety changes sound. Over time, this becomes a new literacy, not reading words, but reading states. Not editing voice, but educating it back into ease. The sound of safety. The voice you carry today is the sum of every moment your body adjusted for survival. It is not broken, it is bilingual, fluent in fear and longing alike. To speak from regulation is to reconcile those tongues, to let the nervous system and the narrative reunite. So as you end this reflection, breathe once more. Feel your ribs expand. Whisper something simple, your name, your truth, your I am here. Let it vibrate through the jaw, spine, and memory. Hear it not as a word, but as a waveform, your nervous system's song, because every syllable is a state, and every state, once met with compassion, becomes a new sentence in your evolving grammar of safety. Mirror-Linguistic Decode. What correction teaches the soul, the echo of instruction. The first lessons we ever learn are rarely in books. They're in voices, familiar ones, shaping sound into meaning, meaning into morality. Before we knew what grammar was, we were already graded by tone. Before we learned what to say, we learned what not to. A raised eyebrow, a sigh of disappointment, a single word, sharp and swift. These are the linguistic fingerprints of upbringing, the subtle codes that script our perception of self. And over time, they accumulate into philosophy. Not abstract belief, but embodied creed. Every don't talk back becomes a policy. Every stop crying becomes a law. Every say it properly becomes a test we keep taking, decades later. These phrases are more than memories. They're mental architectures. We build our inner worlds with the words we were told. Correction as cosmology. To a child, every correction carries cosmological weight. Adults are gods in miniature, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. Their words become laws of physics, defining what is possible. Don't talk back. The command sounds behavioral, but it encodes a worldview. Autonomy equals threat. Stop crying. An attempt at regulation that translates into doctrine. Emotion, error. Say it properly. A plea for articulation that lands as judgment. Expression equals test. Each phrase, repeated in formative years, crystallizes into an axiom. And axioms don't fade. They form frames. Frames filter reality. Reality, filtered long enough, becomes identity. Thus, Mirror Talk asks, what if the voice you call your own is built on borrowed blueprints? What if correction became creation, not of language, but of self-concept? The soul learns syntax. A child doesn't hear instruction, they hear interpretation. Not I did something wrong, but I am wrong. Not they don't like my tone, but my tone is unsafe. Over time, these micro-meanings merge. The body learns that safety is earned through suppression, compliance, and translation. It edits emotion before it exits. It practices invisibility as etiquette. In this way, grammar becomes theology, a belief system about worth, woven through sentence structure. I'm sorry, but becomes liturgy. It's fine, I'm fine becomes creed. I don't want to cause trouble becomes prayer. Our sentences become sermons. Our speech a sanctuary for our conditioning. Sapir-Whorf and the architecture of perception. In the early 20th century, linguists Edward Sapir and Benjamin Lee Whorf proposed a radical idea. Language shapes thought. It doesn't just describe reality, it designs it. This is the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, sometimes called linguistic relativity. Its essence. We don't merely speak language, language speaks us. If your native tongue has 20 words for snow, you'll see its nuances. If it has none for tenderness, you'll struggle to name what you feel. But beyond national language lies familial language, the dialect of our upbringing, and that too shapes perception. Consider a home where love is spoken only through humor, affection becomes comedy. Or one where emotion is met with logic, feeling becomes something to fix. Or one where conflict means danger, disagreement becomes disloyalty. The linguistic ecosystem of childhood determines what the nervous system deems real. What can be said can exist. What cannot be said cannot safely exist. Thus, the words we heard most often became the sentences we think in. They're not mere memories, they're mental operating systems. The semantics of safety. Every family has its own semantic field. words that mean more than their dictionary definitions. Take respect. In one home, it means dignity. In another, obedience. In a third, silence. The child doesn't know which meaning is universal. They assume it's absolute. So when they enter the world, they interpret every exchange through their inherited lens. A colleague's disagreement feels like disrespect. A friend's boundary feels like betrayal. A partner's pause feels like punishment. This is semantic imprinting, when personal definitions become perceptual defaults. The nervous system doesn't check for translation. It reacts. And reaction becomes repetition, playing out old meanings in new scenes. Correction, containment, and the loss of voice. Most correction begins with good intention, to guide, shape, protect. But when correction is chronic, or paired with shame, it becomes containment. A child whose every outburst meets reprimand learns not emotional regulation, but repression. A teen whose tone is constantly critiqued learns performance, not presence. Language, once a playground, becomes a proving ground. Speech transforms from exploration into examination. By adulthood, expression feels evaluative, every word weighed against imagined red pens. We call it overthinking. In truth, it's overcorrection, the internalization of scrutiny. Echo chambers of the mind. Inside each of us lives a panel of voices, internalized authority figures who edit our speech before it leaves our lips. They whisper, "Don't be rude. Watch your tone. Say it nicely." No one likes a know-it-all. We often call this self-talk, but it's not always self. It's an echo chamber, filled with frequencies absorbed long ago. These echoes govern rhythm and restraint. They dictate when we defer, when we diminish, when we dare. And while they may once have ensured acceptance, they now often suppress authenticity. To discern self from echo, ask, whose voice is this really? Does it speak with love or with law? Does it invite expansion or enforce contraction? Is it a guardian or a ghost? Awareness transforms echo into insight. Naming the voice begins the process of reclaiming the throat. The linguistic alchemy of emotion, when stop crying becomes a mantra, tears become taboo. The nervous system, seeking belonging, complies. It redirects emotion inward. Anger becomes anxiety. Sadness becomes silence. Fear becomes fawning. This is emotional transmutation, not healing, but hiding. The body reroutes expression into acceptable channels, distorting the original signal. Yet what is repressed is not erased. It waits, humming beneath habitual words. You can hear it in tight laughter, careful phrasing, excessive gratitude. Each tone a translation, not a truth. To reverse the spell, we must decode the language of our symptoms. Where speech constricts, emotion calls for recognition. Where tone trembles, truth seeks release. The work is not to speak better, but to speak freer. From commandments to conscious choice phrases like "don't talk back" or "say it properly" were once survival scripts, ways to keep order, maintain respect, or prevent shame. But carried into adulthood, they morph into commandments. Thou shalt not question. Thou shalt not weep. Thou shalt not falter. We live by them unconsciously, policing ourselves before others ever need to. Yet awareness reclaims agency. Each phrase can be rewritten, reinterpreted, relanguaged. "Don't talk back" can become, "Your voice has value even when it challenges." "Stop crying" can become, "Tears are truth leaving the body." "Say it properly" can become, "Speak it your way," meaning matters more than method. Every reframe reprograms the nervous system, translating punishment into permission. Linguistic relativity in healing, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, suggests that if language shapes perception, new language can reshape it. Healing, then, is a linguistic revolution, one phrase at a time. When you swap should for could, agency returns. When you replace "I can't" with "I'm learning to," potential opens. When you catch "sorry" and offer "thank you," shame softens into gratitude. These aren't semantics, they're somatics. Each substitution shifts physiology. Words are levers for state change. The nervous system listens to syntax. Tone trains tissue. Every utterance either contracts or expands the body's field of safety. Thus, mirror talk isn't just philosophy, it's repatterning, teaching the body a new language of liberation. The moral of correction teaches the soul hierarchy. It defines whose truth counts, whose timing matters, and whose tone is tolerated. If used consciously, it teaches accountability. If used carelessly, it teaches submission. A healthy correction says, "I want to understand you better." A harmful one says, "You're wrong to be you." The first refines expression, the second rewrites essence. Many adults carry the latter, a nervous system forever seeking the right version of self. But what if the soul never needed correction, only curiosity? Reclaiming inner dialogue to decode is to deconstruct. To deconstruct is to decide. You are not bound to the phrases that built you. You can edit your inner anthology, footnote the fictions, reissue the truths. Begin by listening. When you hesitate to speak, ask, what phrase echoes here? Whose approval am I preempting? Name it gently. Thank it for its service, then release it. In its place, plant new phrases, not as affirmations, but as permissions. It's safe to take up sound. Emotion is evidence of aliveness. My voice is not a test, it's a testament. Repeat them not as mantras, but as mirrors, until your reflection recognizes itself. Self-reflection. The echo and the author. Close your eyes. Inhale slowly. Exhale with sound. Ask yourself, what phrase still echoes when you try to speak your truth? Whose voice is it? When did it first arrive? See the scene, not for blame, but for understanding. Notice how your body responds, throat tight, shoulders high, breath shallow. Now, imagine your present self entering that room. You approach the younger you, place a hand on their shoulder, and whisper, "You don't need to earn the right to speak. Your voice is safe with you now." Breathe again. Feel the echo loosen. This is reauthoring, the soul reclaiming its script. Language as liberation. We begin life fluent in instinct, then correction teaches us to translate, to trade raw truth for refined speech. But every translation risks losing nuance. To decode is to come home, to remember the mother tongue of the nervous system. So when you next catch yourself shrinking a sentence, softening a truth, swallowing a tear, pause. Ask not, am I saying it right? But am I saying it real? Because every phrase you reclaim rewires perception. Every truth you speak without trembling teaches your body a new law. Safety is not silence, expression is existence. And with each word spoken in wholeness, you become both linguist and liberator, translating your soul back into sound. Nervous system language, reframe spectrum. Words that regulate. If every phrase is a mirror, then reflection can rewrite reality. What we say, and how we say it, does more than describe the world. It creates it. Each utterance, each sigh, each subtle inflection sends a signal, safe or startled. The body doesn't wait for semantics. It listens to the score beneath the sentence. Before the mind translates meaning, the nervous system decodes tone. A word may be loving in intention, but laced with alarm in delivery. A correction may be fair in logic, but felt as threat in vibration. Words can wound, but tone heals first, because language isn't just information, it's energy in articulation. Every phrase is both mirror and map. A mirror of the speaker's state, a map guiding the listener's body. When you speak, you are shaping not only ideas, but nervous systems. Reframing as regulation, the nervous system language (NSL) approach invites us to see phrases not as fixed formulas, but as living frequencies. A phrase spoken in fear constricts. A phrase spoken in curiosity expands. The goal isn't perfection of words, but presence of tone. Because the voice is a tuning fork, it either harmonizes or hardens the field it enters. In every conversation, your tone becomes an invitation or an instruction. Invitation says, "You're safe to stay present." Instruction says, "Change to survive." To reframe language is to move from command to compassion, from fear of error to permission for expression. Let's explore how small linguistic shifts can rewrite not only what we mean, but how we're felt. Reframe example 1, from command to care. Stop crying. This phrase is often spoken with urgency, not cruelty, but discomfort. We say it when emotion feels unmanageable, when tears mirror something we haven't made peace with. But the body hears. Emotion equals error. The throat tightens, breath shallows, eyes learn to hold oceans. Reframe through NSL. The same moment can become regulation. You're feeling a lot, I'm here. Notice the transformation, from suppression to support, from silencing to safeness, from control to companionship. This simple shift teaches the nervous system a new equation. Emotion equals expression, which equals connection. Over time, those three words, I'm here, rewire centuries of stoicism. They anchor the body back into belonging. Reframe example 2, from defiance to dialogue. Don't talk back. This command polices autonomy. It confuses articulation with attack. The body hears. Voice equals violation, so it learns quietness as safety, compliance as kindness. But what if curiosity replaced correction? I hear you have more to say. This reframe preserves order while inviting ownership. It acknowledges both structure and soul. Instead of framing dialogue as disobedience, it recognizes speech as selfhood. To say I hear you is to restore reciprocity, the foundation of co-regulation. The nervous system, recognized, relaxes. The voice, validated, steadies. Through small reframes, we shift from dominion to dialogue, from command to connection. Reframe example 3, from precision to presence. Say it properly. So many of us grew up under this phrase, a demand for eloquence that often erased emotion. The intention, teach clarity. The result, teach hesitation. The nervous system learns that truth must be tidy to be tolerated. Authenticity becomes a performance. Now reframe, take your time, I want to understand. The difference is felt, not just heard. The new phrase places value on meaning, not method. It allows emotion to breathe through syntax, imperfection to coexist with insight. The child or inner child hears, my voice is not a test. My thoughts don't need polish to earn presence. And in that permission, expression returns to its original rhythm, honest, unfiltered, alive. Tone as a safety signal. Reframes are not merely semantic swaps, they're somatic signals. Tone, or prosody, is the melodic contour of speech, the rise and fall, the softness and swell. Neuroscience shows that prosody activates the ventral vagal system, signaling safety and engagement. Flat tone triggers uncertainty. Sharp tone signale danger. Warm tone says it's safe to connect. In early attachment, caregivers' tones taught our bodies how to read safety. So today, before the brain deciphers words, the vagus nerve asks, is this voice safe? Thus, prosody precedes perception. A calm tone can soothe even harsh words. A harsh tone can spike even soft phrases. Mini practice. Feel the frequency. Let's bring theory into body. Take a breath. Speak each phrase aloud, slowly, gently. First say, stop crying. Notice what happens in your body. Does your chest tighten? Does your breath shorten? Feel the contraction, not as judgment, but as data. Now inhale softly, exhale longer. Say, you're feeling a lot, I'm here. Pause. What shifted? You may feel the sternum loosen, the jaw soften, breath deepen. This is somatic contrast, the nervous system responding to linguistic temperature. Now try again. Don't talk back. Then I hear you have more to say. One commands, the other invites, one narrows, the other opens. This is the reframe spectrum, the vibrational difference between contraction and expansion. Over time, the body learns to prefer expansion. It seeks safety, not silence, belonging, not obedience. Why tone heals first? Because the nervous system is pre-verbal. It recognizes melody before meaning. In infancy, tone was the first teacher. The sing-song coo equals comfort. The flat monotone equals indifference. The sharp shout equals alarm. So even as adults, our physiology listens like infants, attuned to emotional music, not just mental content. That's why a single word, come, can feel either coercive or caring, depending on delivery. The power of tone lies in its honesty. You can lie with words, but not with vibration. Prosody reveals state, whether open or armed. Thus, when we speak with softened tone, we reparent the nervous system, teaching it that firmness can coexist with safety, truth with tenderness. This is not about performative calm, but authentic attunement. Regulated tone arises from regulated state. You cannot fake resonance, you must embody it. From reaction to resonance, when stress hits, our voices often mirror our state, terse, flat, rushed, but awareness invites artistry. We can pause, breathe, and retune before replying. To reframe isn't to sugarcoat truth, it's to speak truth without tearing tissue. It's to hold firmness in melody, clarity in compassion. The NSL reframe spectrum isn't a script. It's a practice of presence. Each phrase, consciously chosen, becomes a microdose of safety for speaker and listener alike. Embodied reflection. Your library of tone. Take a moment. Think of someone whose voice made you feel safe. Perhaps they said little, but every word felt like an embrace. Now think of a voice that made you flinch, even when it used kind words. The difference wasn't semantics. It was state. Their tone taught your body what safety sounds like. Now ask yourself, what tone does my voice teach? You needn't answer with guilt. Answer with grace. Every tone is a teacher, even the tense ones. They reveal where your system still sings survival. Language as lullaby. Each reframe is a note in a new song, a lullaby for the limbic system. When we speak kindly, we hum safety back into our cells. We build fluency in frequencies that calm rather than command. This is not weakness, it's wisdom. To soothe is not to submit, it's to sustain connection. So when frustration rises or a loved one trembles, remember, your tone can be the bridge, your breath the metronome, your voice the vessel of safety. Because every phrase, when reframed with presence, becomes more than language, it becomes medicine. The invitation of sound in the old scripts, power meant control. In the new lexicon, power means co-regulation. You no longer need to command to be heard. You can invite and still be clear. You can soothe and still be strong. So as you move through conversation with child, partner, colleague, or self, listen not only for logic but for linguistic texture. Ask, does my voice open or close the space? Does it demand or invite? Because tone is the teacher the world remembers longest. And every time you choose invitation over instruction, you not only change the sound of the sentence, you change the state of the soul that hears it. Lexicon Lab. Rewriting the echo. Welcome to the lab. There are no white coats here, no sterile benches, no microscopes humming with cold light. This is a language laboratory, and your tools are breath, memory, and compassion. In this space, you are both scientist and subject, observer and observed. You're not dissecting the past, you're decoding it. Not editing your story, but translating it into a dialect your nervous system can finally understand. The experiment is simple. One phrase, one reflection, one reframe. And yet the results can ripple through an entire lifetime. Step 1. Locate the echo. Every person carries an echo, a phrase that lingers long after its speaker has left the room. It's the sound that hums beneath hesitation, the line that interrupts courage. You hear it when you're about to speak your truth, that whisper of warning, the ghost of correction. It might be, don't be so sensitive, because I said so. You're too much. You're old enough to know better. Don't make a scene. Use your words. At the time, it may have seemed ordinary, even loving. But repetition turns remarks into rules, and those rules become reflexes. The nervous system, loyal and literal, files them as instruction. Don't feel too deeply. Don't question authority. Don't be inconvenient. These aren't conscious beliefs. They're somatic scripts. They live in the pause before confession, the breath held before boundary, the apology offered before assertion. To locate your echo, ask gently, What phrase still echoes when I try to speak my truth? Pause. Listen. Don't force it. The body remembers what the mind rationalized away. You might feel it before you hear it, a tightening, a flinch, a subtle recoil. That's your echo answering. Step 2. Name the state. Once you've found the phrase, don't rush to fix it. First, feel what it does. Close your eyes. Repeat it softly, for example. Don't be so sensitive. Notice what happens inside. Do your shoulders rise? Does your jaw clench? Does the chest cave or the stomach twist? This is the state the phrase created. Maybe it summons freeze, that still, shrinking silence. Or fawn, a quick smile, a soft apology. Or flight, a rush to explain or escape. Or fight, a surge of indignation, a desire to defend. Each phrase is a portal into a physiological memory. When you name the state, you reclaim authorship. You're no longer inside the script. You're studying it. Say to yourself, this is what my body learned to do to stay safe. No blame, no shame, only observation. Awareness turns reaction into research. Step 3. Decode the lesson. Every phrase taught something, not just about behavior, but about being. Stop crying taught that emotion equals exposure. Don't talk back taught that autonomy equals threat. You're too sensitive taught that empathy equals error. These are philosophies of survival, absorbed, not agreed upon. You did not choose them. They were downloaded through tone and repetition. Now, with adult awareness, you can examine their code. Ask, what was this phrase trying to protect me from? What misunderstanding of love or safety does it contain? Perhaps don't make a scene was a parent's plea for peace, not a decree of your unworthiness. Perhaps use your words meant I want to understand you, but landed as you're doing it wrong. When we decode intention from impact, compassion returns for both the voice that spoke and the one that received. The aim is not to defend or condemn, but to translate, to find the unmet need behind the noise. Step 4. Rephrase. For the present now comes the alchemy. You take the old phrase, the echo of containment, and rewrite it for the nervous system you inhabit today. This is not about the person who said it. It's about the body that heard it. Your task, craft a new phrase that speaks safety into that space. Let's explore some examples. Don't be so sensitive could rephrase as your sensitivity is signal, not flaw. You're too much. Rephrases to your fullness is welcome here. Don't make a scene. Rephrases to it's safe to be seen. Because I said so. Expands in rephrase to let's explore the reason together. Use your words. Rephrases to your feelings are words too. Each reframe is a neurological update, a patch replacing outdated codes, but more than intellectual, it's incarnational. When you speak it aloud, slowly, with breath, you invite your body to believe it. Say it as if to your younger self. Feel how the new phrase lands. Does your posture shift? Breath deepen? Eyes soften? This is neuroplasticity in motion, rewiring through resonance. Step 5. Anchor the reframe. The nervous system learns through repetition and relationships, so to install a new phrase, treat it like a daily ritual. Speak it aloud each morning, tone gentle, eyes open. Whisper it when the old echo surfaces. Write it on a note, place it where breath happens often, mirror, kettle, dashboard. Each repetition reaffirms a new reality. This is the language of my safety now. Over time, the echo fades, not from erasure, but integration. It becomes background harmony, absorbed, not erased. Step 6. Build your living lexicon. Now you're ready to begin crafting your living lexicon, your personal NSL, a vocabulary designed not for performance, but for peace. This is not a list of perfect phrases. It's a collection of truths your body recognizes as kind. Begin simply. Create 2 columns. Column A, echoes, the phrases you heard that shaped contraction. Column B, reframes, the words that release expansion. For each pairing, include a body cue, how each phrase feels. For example, echo, don't talk back, reframes as, I hear you have more to say. The body's response, shoulders drop, breath steadies. Echo, stop crying. Reframe, you're feeling alarm, I'm here. The body's response, chest opens, tears flow freely. Echo, you're too sensitive. Reframes to your depth is a gift. And the body's response is that jaw relaxes, eyes soften. This isn't homework, it's homecoming. A language atlas of safety, drawn in your own handwriting. Your lexicon will grow as you listen. Each conversation reveals a new entry. Each trigger becomes translation practice. In time, you'll find your voice naturally reaching for regulation, not as a technique, but as instinct. You're not replacing history, you're rewriting inheritance. Not silencing echoes, but harmonizing them. Step 7. The science of reframing. Why does this simple act of rewriting feel so profound? Because every phrase carries neural associations, bundles of sensory, emotional, and motor patterns. When you rephrase with awareness, you're not just altering words, you're altering wiring. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reconfigure connections, thrives on novelty plus safety. Each compassionate reframe introduces new stimulus without threat. The brain marks it as meaningful, the body encodes it as memory. When repeated, these reframes strengthen new synaptic pathways. Old roots, shame, contraction, silence, begin to atrophy. New roots, curiosity, compassion, courage, begin to stabilize. In essence, you're teaching your nervous system a new native language, one where safety isn't silence but self-expression. Over months, this practice can recalibrate your baseline. Moments that once triggered freeze now invite reflection. Words that once wounded now awaken wisdom. Each reframe is a replica of repair, the body learning. This time I'm safe. Step 8. Integration practice. Find a quiet space. Have your journal or voice note app open. Take a deep breath. Feel your feet. Place one hand on your chest, one on your throat. Whisper, I'm ready to rewrite. Then gently answer. 1. What phrase echoes loudest when I hesitate to speak? 2. What state does it summon? Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? 3. Where do I feel it in my body? 4. What truth was I trying to express when I first heard it? 5. What phrase, if spoken then, would have helped me stay open? Write your reframe. Speak it aloud. Let it resonate through chest and jaw. Now, breathe again, deeper, slower. Notice how your body responds to your own compassion. This is how language becomes regulation. Through breath, through choice, through repetition. Each reframe is not it's dialogue between past and present, between echo and essence, translating survival into safety. You were never wrong for the way you spoke. Your tone, your tears, your tremors, they were translations of truth. But you grew in a world that rewarded restraint, not resonance. And so you learned the dialect of defense. Now, you are fluent in awareness. You can code switch into compassion. You can translate survival into safety, one phrase at a time. Your living lexicon is your soul's second language, rooted in empathy, tuned to truth, whispered with warmth. Carry it softly, expand it slowly, let it evolve with your breath. Because every word you rewrite is not just healing you, it's altering the language of everyone who listens. The echo ends when the invitation begins. So speak kindly, speak curiously, speak as if your nervous system were listening, because it always is. Somatic pause. The throat as threshold. There is a silence between inhalation and expression, a slender pause often overlooked. It is not emptiness, it is potential, a quiet corridor where truth gathers breath. The space between words, most of us rush through this space. We speak to fill air, to prove presence, to prevent the discomfort of quiet. But in that hurry, something sacred is lost, the somatic pause, the body's whisper before the voice awakens. This element invites you to enter that pause, to feel the throat as threshold, the meeting point of body and language, instinct and articulation. Because before a single word is spoken, your nervous system has already chosen a tone. Speech is not born in the mouth, it blossoms from breath, filtered through feeling, shaped by safety. And the first gate it must pass through is the throat. The throat as a bridge. The throat is more than anatomy, it is an emotional borderland. Above it, thought, cognition, narrative. Below it, heart, emotion, intuition. When open, it allows translation, the heart's truth flowing into word. When tense, it becomes dam and armor, a barricade against vulnerability. Every unshed tear, every swallowed word, every withheld boundary writes itself here, a somatic diary of silences. We call it a lump in the throat, but it's more than metaphor, it's neurology, made visible. The vagus nerve, winding from brainstem through neck to chest, acts as a bi-directional messenger. It carries state to sound. If calm, the voice softens. If scared, it sharpens. It also carries sound to state. A gentle exhale or hum can soothe the heart. Thus, the throat is both speaker and listener, a two-way bridge between physiology and feeling. When you attend to it, you're not only tuning your voice, you're recalibrating your entire regulatory system. Holding space with the body, before we reach for words, we must reach for presence. So let us pause, not to fix, not to perform, but to feel. You may sit or stand. Let your feet root into the ground, not stiff but steady, a quiet promise of support. Bring one hand to your chest, the other to your throat. Feel the warmth of your palm against skin. Close your eyes if that feels safe. Now, inhale slowly through the nose, letting the breath travel down, widening the ribs. Exhale softly through the mouth, like fog on glass, gentle, audible, unforced. Repeat twice more. Let each exhale loosen the scaffolding of speech. You are not here to be eloquent, only honest. Now whisper softly. My voice belongs here. Pause. Let silence follow. That silence is not absence, it's language too. It tells your body, I don't need to rush. I'm allowed to exist between breaths. Why silence regulates silence is not emptiness, it is integration. Each pause allows the body to digest emotion, to metabolize meaning before it's spoken. Neuroscience calls this interoceptive awareness, the ability to sense internal state. In quiet, the insular cortex activates, mapping the subtleties of sensation, the warmth in your chest, the weight of your tongue, the tremor beneath thought. These signals guide expression, ensuring speech aligns with truth. Without pause, we bypass this wisdom, words race ahead of awareness, and authenticity lags behind articulation. Silence, then, is syntax for the soul, the grammar of groundedness. It teaches the nervous system to rest before it reacts. When you hold stillness in the throat, you send a message upward and downward. It's safe to be seen and safe to be silent. Tension as teacher. Many of us have tightness here, a throat that closes mid-sentence, a jaw that clenches before truth, a voice that trembles when naming need. These are not flaws. They are fossils of survival, traces of times when silence was safety. Each constriction is a story. A pause before punishment, a word swallowed to keep peace, a truth edited for approval. When you feel that tightness, resist the urge to conquer it. Approach it as a librarian, not a warrior. Ask, what memory lives in this muscle? What sound was never allowed to pass? Sometimes the body will answer in feeling, not phrase, a surge of heat, a wave of sadness, a trembling breath. That is language too. Let it speak. Your task is not to force openness, but to befriend the threshold. Tension loosens not under scrutiny, but under safety. Each time you meet it with compassion, the gate creaks wider. The vagus connection, voice and heart in harmony. Within your throat runs the vagus nerve, the wandering thread connecting breath, voice and heart. When you breathe deeply, tone softens or hum gently, you stimulate this pathway, activating the ventral vagal state of social engagement. This is the physiology of coherence. Heart rate synchronizes with breath. Voice warms with resonance. Mind quiets, listening returns. Each exhale is not just release, it's reharmonization. The vagus teaches a paradox. Sound can soothe silence, and silence can sound like safety. When you hum, sigh, or speak softly, you send a pulse of peace down this nerve. It reaches the heart, whispering, "We are not in danger." The heart responds with rhythm, and in that rhythm, tone returns to tenderness. This is mirror talk in physiology, language as resonance, the nervous system hearing itself through vibration. Voice as barometer. The throat reveals truth before the tongue confesses it. A strained tone says, "I'm holding too much." A faltering pitch says, "I'm afraid to be felt." A sudden dryness says, "I'm not ready to reveal." The body cannot fake fluency. So instead of pushing sound, we listen through it. Ask as you speak, does this voice belong to my fear or my freedom? If it feels forced, pause, breathe, let the throat unclench, the jaw release. Then begin again, slower, lower, softer. Notice how tone transforms not only message, but meaning. A simple "I'm okay" can sound like truth or tremor, depending on the state beneath. To speak from regulation is to align verbal and visceral, to let word and waveform agree. The somatic pause in conversation. The pause is not a luxury, it's a necessity for nervous system dialogue. When someone shares pain, our reflex is to fill silence with advice, apology, analysis. But what the body often needs is breath space. The somatic pause is how safety is transmitted. You exhale instead of explain. You nod instead of negate. You wait, allowing their system to catch up. Silence, held gently, becomes a mirror, reflecting trust, not absence. Each pause communicates. You don't need to rush your truth here. And in that slowing, regulation co-regulates. Practicing the pause. Try this micro practice right now. Find your stance, feet grounded, shoulders soft. One hand on chest, one on throat. Inhale through the nose, count 4. Hold, count 2. Exhale through the mouth, count 6. Now whisper just once. My voice belongs here. Then stay silent for 3 breaths. Notice how your body rearranges around quiet. How breath feels as language without letters. How stillness can say, I am here. Each pause you practice teaches your system that sound is choice, not compulsion. That you can wait without worry. Over time, silence becomes a sanctuary, not a void. When words return after silence, words re-emerge changed, slower, steadier, sincere. They carry the cadence of calm, the gravity of groundedness. You begin to speak less to be understood, and more to understand yourself. Your tone no longer chases validation, it mirrors regulation. From this space, speech becomes service, not strategy. It honors both you and the one listening. This is language as co-regulation, each phrase an offering, not an order. Your voice becomes less performance, more presence. Less armor, more bridge, and those who hear it, including your own inner child, feel safer simply by sound. Insight, the heart of the voice. The heart and voice are entwined by biology and metaphor alike. To speak from the heart is not poetic, it's polyvagal. When the heart beats calmly, the vagus hums evenly, the voice carries warmth. When the heart races, the throat tightens, prosody flattens. Your voice is a live reading of cardiac coherence. So when you soften your tone, you're not just performing peace, you're restoring it. Each breath, each syllable, reharmonizes what tension once fractured. You're literally tuning the instrument of your humanity. And every time you speak from this state, you teach others their own frequency of safety. This is the essence of NSL, language that not only informs, but informs the body. Integration, the quiet return. Let this final practice close your reflection. Sit or stand as before. Feel your feet. Hand to chest, hand to throat. Inhale softly, exhale longer. Whisper, my voice belongs here. Pause then, whisper again, slower, gentler. Silence is my language too. Let the words dissolve into breath. Feel the echo ripple from throat to heart, heart to breath, breath to ground. Stay with the quiet that follows, not as absence, but as arrival. This stillness is your somatic punctuation, a full stop of safety, a comma of care. Because before you speak your truth, you must first feel its home. And the home is here, in the pause, in the pulse, in the place where breath meets word. The threshold speaks. The throat is the gate of becoming. Each time you cross it with awareness, you bring body and voice back into union. You no longer whisper apologies to be allowed. You whisper acknowledgements to belong. Your tone no longer trembles under command. It rests in consent. Silence no longer signals fees. It sings of safety. In this way, the throat becomes both mirror and messenger, a threshold where the nervous system learns that expression and peace are not opposites, but partners. So as you leave this pause, carry its resonance. Let your next word emerge like a wave, born of stillness, sustained by breath, delivered with care. Because the voice you're reclaiming doesn't just speak for you, it speaks as you. And that voice, rooted in awareness, warmed by compassion, is the sound of safety remembering itself. Psychological insight, the science of the spoken self-language as a nervous system mirror. We do not merely speak, we expose. Every utterance is a somatic confession, a pulse of physiology wrapped in grammar. To speak is to reveal state, to offer a snapshot of the body's current negotiation between threat and trust. Even when words lie, tone tells the truth. This is the heart of the Mirror-Linguistic Hypothesis, MLH. Language is not only a tool of communication, but a mirror of regulation. The Mirror-Linguistic Hypothesis proposes that 1. Every phrase carries both semantic meaning and somatic state data. 2. Communication is an act of nervous system synchronization, not merely idea exchange. 3. The reflective feedback loop between speaker, listener, and self shapes both linguistic structure and physiological state. Speech is not separate from the nervous system. It is the nervous system expressed in syntax. The self as speech, from Freud to Lacan. Freud described the psyche as layered, with the ID, ego, and superego, each negotiating instinct, morality, and mediation. But it was Jacques Lacan who reframed this triad through language, arguing, the unconscious is structured like a language. Lacan saw speech not as ornament, but as architecture, the scaffolding through which the psyche takes shape. In Lacanian theory, the self is stitched together through signifiers, words, metaphors, and names, all inherited from the symbolic order, culture, law, language. Thus, who we are is not merely felt, but spoken into being. Each I am is a mirror reflecting both identity and ideology. Each name, each label is a lattice of permission and prohibition. But Lacan's lens, though brilliant, is largely top-down, mind first, body later. The mirror-linguistic hypothesis expands it. The unconscious is not only structured like a language, it's regulated like a body, meaning is mirrored in muscle, not just metaphor. The symbolic order doesn't just script behavior, it scripts breath. To say I can't isn't just grammar, it's a physiological freeze command. To say I'm fine through clenched teeth isn't linguistic deceit, it's autonomic dissonance. Language, therefore, is not a neutral tool. It is a somatic artifact. Each sentence carries traces of survival, learned, embodied, and echoed. Attachment theory, tone as template. Before words, there was tone. Before thought, there was touch. Our earliest caregivers didn't teach language through grammar. They taught it through gaze, cadence, and contour. This is the foundation of attachment theory, pioneered by John Bowlby and expanded by Mary Ainsworth. A child's sense of safety is built not on vocabulary, but on vocal melody, the rhythm of reassurance. A securely attached infant learns that distress calls are met with calm tones, soft eyes, and a regulated presence. Their nervous system learns a simple truth: sound equals safety. Their later language reflects this, open, curious, collaborative. An anxious attachment, however, learns unpredictability. Tone oscillates, warm then cold, soothing then sharp. Language becomes a performance, over-explaining, pleasing, and persuading. An avoidant attachment learns that silence is safety. Speech is risk. Emotion is invasion. Language contract, terse, factual, detached. And in disorganized attachment, tone becomes tangled, the voice of comfort, also the voice of fear. Words carry double meanings. Come here and stay back. Speech becomes a survival strategy, oscillating between protest and placation. Every adult voice is a soundtrack of attachment. Each hello carries echoes of a lullaby or a warning. When we speak today, our nervous system replays those early duets, the call and response between infant need and caregiver tone. Thus, communication isn't only dialogue, it's reenactment. The MLH reads every conversation as an attachment mirror, a nervous system duet seeking resonance, repair, or repetition. To change communication, we must change the tone memory beneath it. Mirror neurons, the biology of empathy. In the 1990s, neuroscientists discovered mirror neurons, brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe it. They revealed a stunning truth. We learn not only by doing, but by witnessing. When someone reaches for a glass, our own motor cortex echoes the movement. When someone smiles, our facial muscles subtly mirror the expression. When someone's voice trembles, our vagus nerve shivers in sympathy. This is the biological basis of empathy, a shared circuitry of resonance. But mirror neurons don't only mimic movement, they map intention. They decode not just what is said, but how tone, timing, texture. Thus, in conversation, we don't simply hear language, we inhabit it. Every sentence enters the body like a contagion of state. When you speak with calm, the listener's system synchronizes. When you speak with tension, their body braces. In the mirror-linguistic hypothesis, mirror neurons act as state translators. They carry emotional contagion through tone, rhythm, and micro-gesture. Language, therefore, is not only auditory, it is embodied empathy. Your nervous system speaks through sound, and the listener's nervous system replies, not in thought, but in feeling. This is the mirror loop. Voice equals vibration, which leads to a visceral response, which then initiates reflection in the other, and then voice replies, reaction or response. In every dialogue, two bodies are composing a shared score. Polyvagal theory, safety as syntax. Dr. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory reframed our understanding of stress and safety. It revealed that the autonomic nervous system, ANS, is not binary on-off, but hierarchical, navigating three main states. 1. Ventral vagal, safety, connection. 2. Sympathetic, mobilization, fight-flight. 3. Dorsal vagal, shutdown, freeze. Each state carries a voice print. Ventral, open tone, melodic prosody, curious phrasings. Sympathetic, sharp tone, fast tempo, clipped syntax. Dorsal, flat tone, monotone, trailing sentences. Thus, state is syntax. The nervous system edits grammar before the mind does. A person in dorsal state may struggle to find words, brain fog. A person in sympathetic state may speak in fragments or rants, pressure speech. A person in ventral state speaks with flow, coherence, and cadence. Mirror-Linguistic Hypothesis expands this insight. Fluency is regulation. When state shifts, language shifts. To regulate is to regain grammar. Therapeutic listening, then, is not about decoding content, but tracking cadence. A sigh may be a sentence, a pause, a paragraph. When we respond with a regulated tone, we offer co-regulatory syntax. Our voice becomes a stabilizing sentence in the listener's physiology. 5. Embodied syntax. The body speaks before we do. Speech begins long before sound. It starts with breath pattern, muscle tone, facial expression, gut rhythm. The body arranges itself into phrases. Shoulders lift to a question. Chest caves to apology. Each posture is pre-linguistic prose. In MLH, this is called embodied syntax, the body composing language in gesture before articulation. When a person says, I'm fine, but their shoulders sag, the syntax is split, the sentence contradicts the soma. Regulation aligns them. When body and word rhyme, truth resonates. Thus, honesty is not merely moral, it's mechanical. It's the matching of vibration and vocabulary. To restore congruence, one must speak from the body, not at it. Tonal determinism. The sound shapes the self. We often think of language as chosen, deliberate, conscious, but MLH proposes tonal determinism. The tone we inherit determines the tone we trust. If early voices were harsh, we equate volume with truth. If they were flat, we distrust warmth. If they were rushed, we mistake stillness for danger. Our adult speech thus reflects not only personality, but provenance, a lineage of sounds teaching us what safe feels like. Tonal determinism means that the voice is a time machine, every pitch an echo of the past. To transcend it, we must retone ourselves, through breath, through conscious cadence, through mirrored regulation. This is the aim of NSL, to create new tonal templates, so the body learns safety not as silence, but resonance. The feedback loop, reflection as regulation. Every conversation is a loop, not a line. Speech leaves the mouth, enters the air, returns through the ear, and lands in the body. We are both sender and receiver of our own sound. Thus, tone doesn't only affect others, it entrains ourselves. When you speak gently, your own vagus nerve registers safety. When you shout, your heart races to match the volume. Language is therefore biofeedback, a mirror returning our state. The MLH frames this as the reflective feedback loop. Speak and to sense initiates a state which leads to speaking, another picked up sense and recognition of state. Through awareness, this loop becomes neuro-linguistic resonance, each word a note tuning the instrument of self. You are the echo and the ear. Meaning, mirror, and memory. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis taught us that language shapes perception. We see what we have words for, we miss what our lexicon omits. MLH extends this into the somatic realm. We feel what we have tone for, we numb what our prosody avoids. If you lack language for safety, your body can't fully recognize it. If you've never heard apology in a warm tone, even kindness can sound condescending. Thus, expanding your lexicon expands your capacity to feel. New words become new windows. New tones become new territories of trust. Each reframe, as in element 6, is not semantic novelty, but somatic permission. The nervous system learns to associate soft sound with safety, and in doing so, rewrites its emotional geography. Memory, then, is not static, it's tonal. We remember not just what was said, but how it felt to hear it. And through reflective rephrasing, we can rescore the soundtrack of the self. The spoken self, identity as acoustics identity, is not only narrative, it's resonance. You are not just what you believe, but how you sound believing it. Each self-concept, parent, partner, artist, and thinker carries its own vocal posture. Confidence sounds different from compliance. Curiosity sounds different from certainty. When identity fractures through trauma, shame, or performance, tone fragments too. We speak in borrowed cadences, mimicking mentors, masks, or memories. Healing, then, is not only reclaiming story, it's reclaiming sound. To find your voice is to synchronize narrative and nervous system, to let tone and truth finally agree. In MLH, wholeness is acoustic coherence when every role, every part, every echo vibrates in harmony. Innovation, the mirror-linguistic field beyond individual conversation. MLH envisions a collective field, a resonance matrix where shared tone shapes shared reality. When communities speak in states of fear, language decays into command, contempt, collapse. When they speak in safety, language evolves into curiosity, creativity, communion. This is mirror-linguistic field theory, MLFT. Conscious communication co-creates coherent culture. Each voice is a node in the nervous system of humanity. Each phrase either contracts or expands the collective field. To practice NSL is to participate in planetary regulation, a linguistic ecology where safety is the syntax of civilization. Imagine schools teaching tone literacy, hospitals using NSL for bedside dialogue, governments drafting laws in prosody attuned to empathy. This is not utopia, it's neurology scaled, because language is infrastructure and tone, it's electricity. Integration, speaking as science and soul. So what does it mean to live this insight? It means treating every word as waveform, every conversation as co-regulation, every silence as syntax. It means asking before you speak, what state am I speaking from? What state do I wish to invite? It means remembering that the way you speak to yourself trains your nervous system more than any mantra. And it means embracing language not as a weapon or shield, but as a mirror of wholeness, a medium where biology, psychology, and soul converse. The voice that knows, the way we were spoken to became the way we think. The way we speak now becomes the way we feel. Each time you speak kindly, your body learns a new dialect. Each tone of compassion teaches your cells that expression can coexist with ease. You are both author and instrument, every syllable a stroke in the self-portrait of your nervous system. So speak as scientist and poet alike. Let words be data and devotion. Let tone be both diagnosis and cure. And remember, the voice you're reclaiming is not new, it's ancient. It's the sound your body made before it feared being heard. When you return to it, you return to yourself. Integration prompt. Building a nervous system vocabulary, every theory whispers a promise. Understanding will bring transformation. But transformation is not born in thought, it's born in repetition. You do not integrate what you grasp once. You integrate what you return to, what you embody, express, and echo until it becomes your default dialect. Integration is not the end, it's the beginning. So as we arrive at this penultimate section of the episode, remember, the purpose of Mirror Talk is not to memorize ideas, but to retrain awareness. Not to adopt a new belief, but to develop a new language, one that your body recognizes as safe, and your soul recognizes as true. Language, after all, is not fixed, it's living, and you are its author. Integration, then, is authorship, the conscious rewriting of your nervous system's lexicon, word by word, breath by breath. The vocabulary of safety. Everybody already speaks a language of safety, though few of us were taught to listen. You feel it in moments of ease, the exhale that lengthens without command, the shoulders that drop as laughter ripples, the warmth in the chest when seen without judgment. This is ventral fluency, the nervous system's mother tongue. Yet like any language, fluency fades without practice. If you've lived long under stress, you may be fluent instead in survival dialects. Fight, words sharp, declarative, cutting. Flight, sentences rushed, tangents chased. Freeze, silence, forgetfulness, muttered apologies. Fawn, soft tone over agreement, question marks replacing full stops. Integration begins by recognizing which dialect your voice defaults to, not with shame, but curiosity. Because each is not wrong, each is a record, the echo of a nervous system doing its best to belong. To build a nervous system vocabulary, you must first decode your existing one. Ask, what words make my body exhale? Which ones close my throat? When I speak freely, what does my tone sound like? Your answers are entries in your new lexicon. Awareness as alphabet. Before you can rewrite language, you must learn its letters, the signals of state. Start with simple observation. Throughout your day, notice the micro shifts in your voice and body. When do you speed up or stumble? When do you over-explain or underspeak? When does your tone climb to please or drop to defend? These fluctuations are not flaws, they are phonemes of physiology. The body speaks in tempo, timbre, tension. Every inflection is information, a syllable of state. Begin to chart them. Calm tone leads to shoulders softening, which allows a steady breath, therefore feeling safe. Tight tone leads to chest constricted, and the brain triggers to rapid thought and identifies a threat. This is your alphabet of awareness. The more you attune, the more fluent you become. Because the first step in integration is listening differently, not for correctness, but for coherence. Ask often, does my tone and sound projected match my sense? If yes, you are aligned. If not, pause, breathe, and retune. Each act of alignment is a micro-integration. Writing the body's dictionary now. Take this awareness to the page. Grab your journal or open a voice note app. Title a new section, the body's dictionary. Divide it into two lists. 1. Contractive words, phrases, or tones that tighten your body. 2. Expansive words, phrases, or tones that release it. You might find contractive, should, sorry, must, fine, never mind, okay, if not, I don't know. Expansive. Yes, maybe I'd like to. I feel I need. I trust I'm here. Then annotate each word. Where do you feel it? What memory does it hold? What emotion arises? For example, should triggers jaw tension, obligation, and self-critique. Sorry triggers solar plexus, which leads to a mother's correction and people-pleasing reflex. Yes triggers chest warmth and freedom, authenticity, and curiosity. You are not simply listing words, you're mapping nervous system semantics. Over time, this dictionary will reveal patterns, your personal linguistic weather, which words storm your body, which bring sunlight. And once known, you can choose them consciously. This is the essence of integration. Choice where there was only reflex. Repetition as rewiring neuroscience teaches us that neurons that fire together wire together. Every repetition is rehearsal, and rehearsal is reprogramming. So each time you speak a phrase that calms your body, you reinforce a neural path of peace. Each time you replace a self-critical word with a self-curious one, you strengthen synaptic self-trust. Integration, therefore, is not insight but iteration. Think of your new vocabulary as a daily practice, not a revelation. The nervous system learns through ritual, rhythm, and relationship. Try these exercises. Morning word. Upon waking, speak one phrase aloud that you wish to embody, e.g., I move at the speed of safety. Feel it vibrate in your throat. Midday mirror. When stress rises, look at your reflection. Whisper. My voice belongs here. Observe your tone shift. Evening echo. Before sleep, note one phrase that felt kind today, e.g., I took my time. Let gratitude solidify the circuit. In this way, language becomes somatic training. Each repetition retunes your baseline. Over weeks, contraction softens, curiosity returns, breath widens. You are teaching your body to trust your voice again. Integration across mediums. Language isn't only spoken, it's written, thought, gestured. So integration must occur across all modalities. Written word. Journaling anchors reflection in visibility. The eye witnesses the echo. Spoken word. Saying reframes aloud recruits the vagus and solidifies learning. Heard word. Listening to your tone via recording builds meta-awareness. Felt word. Embodying silence integrates at the subverbal level. Each mode mirrors a layer of the psyche. Writing equals cognition. Speaking is expression, allows feedback. Feeling is body integration. By cycling through all, you engage the full loop of learning from idea to instinct. Integration is not one act, but a sequence of senses. The mirror practice. Dialogue with the self. Stand before a mirror. Look gently, not as critic, but as companion. Let your gaze soften. Breathe slowly through the nose, exhale through parted lips. Now speak to yourself, not as concept, but as being. Start simple. I'm here. I'm learning a new language. My voice is not the enemy. Notice the body's response. Some may feel awkward, resistant, tearful. That's the echo surfacing. Don't fight it. Stay, breathe, repeat. Each mirrored conversation is a micro-integration. The nervous system hearing safety from the one it trusts least and needs most. You are rewriting the relational template. No longer seeking external approval for internal safety. Instead, offering it self to self. This is mirror-linguistic reparenting, the self-speaking safety back into the soma. Over time, the reflection softens. The voice deepens. The body exhales. Language and image reunite, voice and gaze singing in the same key. The vocabulary of permission integration is not about perfect phrasing, it's about permission. To stumble, pause, sigh, reword, to use language as exploration, not evidence. So often, trauma teaches that words are weapons, each sentence scrutinized for survival. Integration teaches that words are windows, each sentence an opening to understanding. Start building a permission lexicon, phrases that create space. Let me think about that. I'm not sure yet. That doesn't feel right to me. Can we slow down? I'd like to try another way. These are not evasions. They are nervous system negotiations. Each asserts agency without aggression. By practicing them, you rewire reflex into response. You reclaim time and tone as your allies, because safety isn't silence, it's the right to pace your participation. Integration through relationship. No language is learned alone. Even self-talk is shaped by echoes of others. So integration deepens through dialogue with friends, partners, community, who are willing to listen, not correct. Invite them into your practice. Share your reframes, explain NSL principles, request co-regulation. Can you repeat that slower? Can we take a breath together? When others meet you in safety, your nervous system receives new data. It's possible to be heard without harm. Each healthy exchange is a mirror upgrade, proof that connection can coexist with authenticity. And in time, you become that mirror for others, modeling tone as tenderness, presence as pedagogy. Your practice becomes contagious calm, reflection prompts, deepening the dialogue. Take time now with pen, voice note, or quiet thought to explore these. 1. Lexical awareness. What 3 words define the way you speak to yourself? Are they borrowed or chosen? 2. Somatic literacy. When you speak those words, what happens in your body? 3. Echo identification. Whose tone do you mimic when you're afraid? Whose when you're calm? 4. Reframe practice. What phrase could you gift your younger self today? one that would have softened the moment you first felt unheard. 5. Embodiment cue. How does your body signal readiness to speak? What does safe enough to share feel like? 6. Integration intention. What one phrase will you rehearse this week as your new baseline, your nervous system's affirmation? Write or voice your answers without editing. Read or listen back later. Hear how your tone evolves as awareness deepens. You are documenting emergence, the language of your next becoming. The practice of enough integration often tempts perfectionism, the urge to speak correctly, heal completely. But your nervous system doesn't seek perfection. It seeks permission to pause mid-sentence, to say, I don't know, to laugh at old echoes instead of bowing to them. The practice is not mastery, but maintenance, gentle tending to tone and breath. Each kind phrase you repeat is a repatterned reflex, a bridge between old contraction and new coherence. Over time, your language simplifies. Less defense, more description, less apology, more presence. You begin to speak the way safety sounds, the living lexicon. What you are building is not a script, but a living lexicon, a vocabulary that breathes, shifts, evolves with each sigh and sunrise. It will never be finished, nor should it. Because to be alive is to keep learning how to speak gently. Each time you choose curiosity over correction, each time you translate reaction into reflection, you expand your language of life. Integration is not about becoming fluent in calm. It's about becoming familiar with yourself. So carry your lexicon as a compass, not a creed. Let it guide you towards spaces, people, and tones that echo ease. And when old phrases return, as they will, greet them with gratitude. They were once your shield. Now they're your story. Whisper softly, thank you for what you taught me. I speak differently now. Then breathe, and choose the next word carefully, as if it were both seed and mirror, because it is, the new first word reclaiming tone, building trust, and rewriting the beginning. When we talk about the first word, most of us picture childhood milestones. Mama, no, mine. Yes, but before any of these formed in the mouth, another word had already been spoken into us, not through syllables, but through sound. Our first word wasn't linguistic, it was tonal. It was the sound that told our body whether the world was safe or not. This tone, the way we were spoken to, became our first grammar. It shaped not just how we spoke to others, but how we thought, reasoned, apologized, defended, and tried to belong. Every I'm sorry said too early, I'm fine said too fast, every silence held too long. All of these trace back to that original imprint. A voice that taught us whether we were allowed to take up space. To find your new first word isn't about erasing the past. It's about reauthoring the starting point your body returns to when life gets loud. It's about recognizing the echo, then choosing differently. Because your tone, not your vocabulary, is what tells your nervous system whether it's being punished or protected. The Mirror-Linguistic Hypothesis reminds us that tone is a message to the body, not just the listener. Every time you speak, your own nervous system is listening. If the way you speak to yourself resembles an old voice, critical, cold, or commanding, you'll keep rehearsing stress, even when the words sound wise. The first word, therefore, isn't a noun or verb. It's a tone of approach, and reclaiming it requires three things: awareness, repetition, and regulation. Awareness. Recognizing the original tone. You can't replace what you can't identify. The first step is learning to recognize the old first word, the tone that became your body's default state. Think of moments when you've been under pressure, criticized, or afraid. Notice how you speak to yourself then. Do you get harsh, sarcastic, dismissive? Do you go silent? Do you intellectualize, searching for the right explanation? Do you try to stay calm while every muscle tightens? Those tones aren't random. They're inherited. Each one maps back to early conditions, the way authority was expressed around you. The voice you use when things go wrong is often the voice that once corrected you. Sometimes it's the voice that ignored you. Becoming aware of this tone isn't about blame. It's about recognition. Once you can hear it, you can respond, not by silencing it, but by offering a new reference point: repetition. Introducing a new default neuroplasticity isn't built on single moments of clarity, it's built on consistent rehearsal. Your body learns safety the same way it learned fear, through repetition. So when stress hits, when shame flares, when conflict tightens your chest, your job isn't to analyze why, it's to introduce a different tone. Speak slowly, drop your shoulders, lower your voice, use plain language, breathe before answering. Over time, this new tone becomes familiar, not because it's dramatic, but because it's predictable. Safety isn't loud, it's consistent. Your new first word might be a simple statement: I'm here. I've got time. Let's slow down. I can come back to this. This isn't a threat. Say it quietly, without pressure. The goal isn't to override your nervous system, it's to give it an alternative pathway. The more you practice, the more automatic it becomes. Eventually, when tension rises, your system will start defaulting to this new tone, not the old one. That's the essence of NSL, language as regulation. The way you speak becomes the way your body learns to return to baseline. Regulation. Matching words to state, speaking calmly while the body is in fight or flight, isn't regulation, it's performance. The nervous system can sense when tone and physiology are out of sync. So before you try to use new language, bring your state online. If your voice is shaking, don't chase composure. Name it, I'm tense right now. If your words feel stuck, soften them. I'm struggling to find the right phrase. If you want to withdraw, anchor with breath. I can take a second. Each statement acts as a bridge between body and language. It's not about forcing fluency, it's about building coherence. True communication starts when tone, truth, and timing align. You don't need to sound strong, you need to sound real. The role of reflection. Most of us don't realize how we sound until we hear it back. You can accelerate integration by recording your voice during difficult moments, not to critique, but to understand. Play it back later when calm. Ask, what state was I in? Was I defending, explaining, or connecting? What did my tone tell my body? If I could re-record it, how would it sound? This isn't about performing better. It's about noticing the link between sound and safety. When you hear your own voice as data, not judgment, you start treating tone as part of the feedback system. You begin to sound more like someone you'd listen to. Bringing it into relationship, rewriting the first word isn't just an individual act, it's relational. The tone you now use in conversation becomes a live experiment. Others will mirror your cadence, pacing, and energy, or they won't. Either way, each interaction is feedback. When someone meets you with harshness, you have two choices: mirror or model. If you match their tone, the old pattern continues. If you keep yours steady, you're not submitting, you're re-regulating. You're teaching your body that safety isn't submission, it's choice. Over time, these moments build a new sense of trust. Your nervous system learns that regulation can exist, even when others aren't regulated. That's how leadership starts, not through dominance, but through consistency. Language beyond words. Some people will never give you the apology, validation, or understanding you needed. But language isn't limited to sentences. Sometimes regulation comes from gestures, steady eye contact, slower breathing, silence that feels open rather than cold. The new first word can be nonverbal. It can be the way you sit in a chair, the way you walk into a room, the way you pause before replying. Each of these is communication. Each tells your nervous system, I'm allowed to exist in this moment without rushing or shrinking. When you recognize this, you stop waiting for perfect conditions. You become the condition. Your state becomes your sentence. The point of return integration is never final. You'll find yourself reverting, sounding like an old authority, tightening at a familiar tone. That's not failure, it's feedback. The nervous system doesn't delete old data, it layers new options on top. When you catch yourself in the old voice, simply pause. Don't add judgment. Say something like, that's an old sound, I'm learning a new one. Then adjust. Even small corrections matter. The nervous system records every shift. Over time, these corrections accumulate. What used to trigger panic becomes manageable. What used to silence you becomes a cue for breath. That's the real sign of progress, not constant calm, but faster recovery. The new first word isn't a mantra, it's a muscle. And muscles grow through use. Closing thoughts. If tone was once your first teacher, it can also be your final one. You don't need to invent new words. You need to reclaim the way you use them. Every time you speak from presence instead of performance, you're revising your origin story. The first word you learned wasn't no, it was tone. The new first word isn't yes, it's safety. And safety isn't spoken once. It's practiced every day in the way you meet yourself. Thank you for spending this time reflecting with me today. This episode, The First Word, was designed to help you understand where your voice came from. Not just the language you use, but the tone that carries it. It's part of an ongoing process of becoming more literate in the language of your nervous system. As you go about your week, I want you to pay attention to tone before content. When conflict arises, when you apologize, when you speak to yourself, notice what your body does. Does your chest tighten? Do your senses get short? Do you over-explain or withdraw? Those moments are your curriculum. They show you what your first word used to be, and they give you the chance to practice the new one. You don't need to fix every reaction. You just need to stay conscious long enough to choose a slightly different response. That's how nervous system language and mirror-linguistic hypothesis work, not as abstract theory, but as practical repatterning. You're not memorizing rules, you're building recognition. You're learning how your body translates communication into safety or threat, and how you can intervene gently before it defaults to an old state. Integration will look simple. It's not about having the right answerer sounding enlightened. It's about being able to slow down and let the body catch up to the conversation. Keep a log this week, not of what you said, but of how you sounded, your actions from those prompts. Make brief notes. Examples such as, today I rushed my words. Today I paused before replying. Today I noticed my tone soften when I exhaled. These entries are more than reflections. They're signs of regulation. You're creating a record of your evolving state. Looking ahead, episode 2, the silent treatment. Next time, we're exploring the silent treatment, not just as a behavior, but as a nervous system strategy. We'll look at how silence can serve as both punishment and protection, how withdrawal becomes communication, and how to recognize the difference between boundary and avoidance. We'll ask, what does silence say when words can't? How does the body read absence as language? When does silence become a survival script, and when can it become space to regulate? You'll learn how to decode the silence in your relationships and in yourself. We'll trace how early experiences of being ignored or dismissed shape your comfort with stillness and voice. And we'll explore how to transform silence from a weapon into a witness, a tool for conscious pause and self-connection. If this episode helped you recognize your own tone patterns, the next one will help you understand the spaces between them, the moments when you stop speaking altogether. Before we go, try this. At some point today, speak a simple phrase in a way that feels safe, not confident, not impressive, just grounded. Something like, I'm here, I have time, this can wait. Say them slowly and listen, not for how it sounds, but for how your body responds. If your chest eases, if your breath deepens, that's integration. That's your nervous system learning a new word. Remember, this process isn't about controlling your voice. It's about building trust with it. The more you meet yourself in awareness, the less you'll need to manage your expression. You'll start to sound like someone who feels safe being heard, and that changes everything. Thank you for being here. This is Mirror Talk, the language of the nervous system. Until next time, speak softly, listen closely, and give your body time to understand what safety sounds like. You've been listening to the Mirror Talks. I'm James Miller.